teamed up to write the sexy Yuletide anthology, A Wrong Bed Christmas, which includes Ignited by Kimberly and Where There's Smoke by Liz. These are two sexy stories featuring two best friends who find Mr. Right, and they both happen to be smoking hot firefighters, which we love. So thank you so much for joining us today, ladies. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Well, thank you.
We're also doing a giveaway of Wrong Bed Christmas. Look at this hot guy right here. All just in time for the holidays, so we're super excited to be giving this away on BookTrib, so please check it out after the chat. So let's start with Kimberly. Can you tell us a bit more about Ignited, just to get us up to speed?
Okay, well, Ignited is about Alexis and Leighton, and Alexis is, I think, a little bit like me if I was footloose and fancy-free, so really a little impulsive, a little spontaneous, probably says things she shouldn't, very much like me. But she's sworn off men because she has terrible judgment when it comes to guys, and that's definitely something I can relate to when I was younger. So she swears off all guys, and then of course she doesn't take into consideration that fate has different plans, and then there's Leighton, who is just hot and there.
There, right? Awesome. And so you, Liz, can you fill us in on all the steamy details in Where There's Smoke? What's going on there?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Where There's Smoke is Alexis's best friend, Emma, and she's a little bit more reserved. She's very academic. She's a professor. She's working on a doctorate. Growing up, she and Alexis were best friends, and they were kind of opposites. And Emma admires Alexis because Alexis does say what's on her mind, where Emma tends to be more reserved. And she's always had a little bit of crush on Emma's older brother, Eric. So that was kind of fun to write. I've never written a book where someone had kind of like this prolonged crush on this kind of high school guy that she, older brother that she admired. So, it was really good to write because I think that the chemistry was kind of a little already there, especially for Emma. And I think Eric didn't necessarily recognize it until he saw Emma again. And he saw how different she was and how grown up she was. So, that's kind of the setup. And, of course, I know we'll talk a little bit more about how the story unfolds. So,
yeah. So, what were your initial reactions when you were asked to work on this anthology together?
Well, I can say for me, I was super excited. I've been a fan of Liz's for a long time, and we both wrote for Supers, and I just loved the opportunity. I mean, they didn't even, my editor didn't even have to finish what she was saying, and I'm not usually a huge fan of writing with other people because I'm a chaotic writer, and I have a terrible process, so I tend to mess other people up. So, but I was like, yes, I'll do that, and she was like, oh, great. So I was very excited.
I was really excited to work. Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say I was really excited to work with Kimberly. I'd read her stuff before, and I knew she was very edgy, and she kind of she had this kind of angst to her writing that I really liked. So I thought we would balance out pretty well, and I think we did for the book. I think that we have different styles, but I think we balanced real nicely in the telling of those stories. So.
Now, what was it like working together? Were you on the phone, chatting, emailing? Like, how did you kind of bring it all together? Late night wine?
All of it? Well, I think we initially started, what I think is kind of cool, I've done one of these before. I'm sure Kim has too, but Kimberly has too. But one of the things that I know that it's, someone kind of has to start. And for me, I was the first person who started because in our writing schedule, I had room to go ahead and start. And Kimberly was still working on another book. I think she was finishing up or maybe revisions. And so I'm the person who started first. And I think you kind of have to do that. You have to have like a starting point or a working point to kind of launch the story. So I started first. We did a lot of emails, and I think I'm pretty much sure that I finished and completed my entire novella before Kim started hers. So I sent all of our jointed scenes. We had extensive conversations on our characters, how we envisioned our characters, because I had to kind of guess and then wait for Kim to fill in the blanks. But that's part of a cool process that makes a cool experience for the reader.
Yeah. And does Harlequin, approach you guys? And, when they approach you about it, do they already have the story laid out, or do you kind of, fill in? Do they have the character descriptions totally down, or do you kind of, bring that to life? What's that like?
I think it's different for every project. In this particular project, we were given a lot of autonomy. So Liz and I mean, they told us what they were looking for in the loosest, structure possible, and then they let us fill in the really big gaps.
Yeah. We knew, I think, that what each story was, I knew, we didn't even know who was writing what story. Kimberly and I decided that. They said they wanted one to be, they wanted them to be connected in some way. They wanted firemen. I believe they said distinctly firemen. And then they wanted the stories to connect in some way. And I think that was pretty much it. I mean, they wanted a cabin thing. So they did know they wanted the cabin thing. But everything else, all the characters, the location, the setting, all that, we brainstormed that together.
Awesome. Yeah, so you really brought it alive. That's fantastic. And you've both written for Superromance in the past, correct?
Yes.
Can you guys tell us a little bit more about that and how that's kind of, you have Blaze and then Superromance is a lot different. So what's that all about?
Well, this is my first Blaze. So I've been primarily writing for Supers. I've written a couple other titles for other publishers, but this is my very first Blaze. So I really went to Kimberly and talked to her for a while on how to do that, because since it's my first one, I wasn't quite sure. I mean, to be quite honest, I haven't had a lot of time for reading outside of, kind of what I was writing. And so I wasn't that familiar with Blaze. I'd read some Blazes, but it had been a while. So Kimberly was a nice guide for that. I have another Blaze that's coming out in February. So this is a little bit of a learning curve for me, because I've never really written anything quite as hot as this is. So yeah, it was a little different for me going from Superromance to Blaze, because this is, I was like a Blaze virgin. So it was my first time. And Kim was gentle with me. So
I was like, keep it going, make it hotter, steamier.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Speaking of steamy romance, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, do you guys remember reading your first steamy romance novel? Is there one in your mind that you remember that you were hiding under the covers with?
I mean, I read Rosemary Rogers when I was in my probably middle school. I mean, I think I got most of my sex education from those books, which is a little scary because it's kind of rapey. But yeah. My ideas of how hot stuff was supposed to be between a man and a woman was formed kind of early on. I think if my mom really knew what was in those books, she probably would die. But she was so happy I was reading and not meddling in something else that she was okay with it. So I think Rosemary Rogers and some of those torrid, piratey romances from the early 80s were my first romances. So
that's
I
awesome.
think I distinctly remember reading Bertrice Small, also a little rapey. Loved her work. I still really love her work.
Yeah.
I read a lot of historical romances, but I do remember the book that I hid was the book that my mom did not want me to read, and that was Hollywood Wives. That was not a romance at all. That was horrifying. I think I was 12 when I read it. Probably not the best reading material. So I read everything I could get my hands on. I think I read Sybil when I was around 13. I read anything. So I would just pick it up and just start reading. And I read Gone with the Wind when I was 14, and by the time I had graduated from high school, I'd read it 8 times. And my mom actually took it away from me and said, "You can't read that book anymore." And I was like, "But I find something new every time." And she's like, "No one needs to read a book more than once." So she just really, she's not, my mom wasn't a reader, so she didn't understand why I would want to read a book more than once. And so it's funny, some of the, I guess, most influential books that really kind of shaped me as a writer were not romances at all, more women's fiction. Yeah. But the books that I really read for pleasure and the ones that I have on my keeper shelf and whatnot, those are most definitely romance. Teresa Medeiros, I have a ton of hers on my shelf. Just books that I still to this day, it's been, 20 years, I'll pick it up and I'm like, oh, I love this book.
I love this scene, yeah. It's like a walk down memory lane. I heard of someone recently, instead of hiding her romances when she was young, she would like cut the cover off and then like tape like a new one on and like hide the true identity. Which I never thought.
That's a smart way to hide your. Yeah, that's a smart way to hide it.
Brilliant.
Not that graphic.
Yeah. So fan casting is always fun. I love it. Kimberly, who would you cast as Alex and Leighton in A Wrong Bed Christmas, the movie?
I am so bad at that. Like, I don't ever think of actors. Like, oh, I just don't. I kind of like to see what other people would say, because then I'm like, oh, yeah, that's a good one, Yeah. So basically anyone who, as far as Leighton goes, if I were a casting director, I would say he has to have a very strong male, like, presence, kind of.
He can't be effeminate.
One of those solid guys that doesn't take any crap, but is still really sweet. Totally. And for Alexis, it would just be someone who is a little quirky, maybe a little badass, but very, very sexually adventurous in the bed, and very, very interested in seeing what life's going to throw at her. So it would be more of like what kind of actor could bring those character traits to life, and that would be, I was like, awesome,
If any of our viewers have ideas, please type it in below. I'd love to hear.
Yeah, because I'm like, oh, I don't know, maybe.
Yeah. How about you, Liz? Do you have any ideas for Emma or Eric?
Like Kimberly, I'm kind of bad with actors. I think
don't have a vision of it, or they do. It's like either or.
Yeah. And, I always, like once a movie came out and they cast someone and it wasn't like the vision of what I had in the book, that always like bothered me, because I'd be like, that's totally not how I saw him. But I mean, I think like if going character wise for Eric, it would be someone kind of more Hugh Jackman, Colin Firth. I mean, not, British or Australian, of course, but kind of more that demeanor, because he's a little bit more grounded, very solid, more serious. He's very much a take charge kind of guy. And then I think that if I were going for someone with like Emma, it's her name, but more like Emma Watson, just kind of a, more serious, studious, intelligent, but kind of has that sassy under edge that no one really knows about. I mean, Alexis can't even imagine. I read Kimberly's book. I didn't have a chance to read it, but when we were actually working on it, because I was like working on another project and I was deep in that. So I had to wait for me to actually get a copy. And I thought it was funny that like Alexis couldn't even imagine Emma, doing anything remotely kinky or, anything like that, because she, in her mind, which I think is very authentic of a character, you have a vision of who your best friend is from childhood and what she will and won't do. And so I thought that was kind of cool that she, even Alexis couldn't imagine Emma having that sensuality, which she does have, so.
We all have friends like that. You're like, she doesn't do those things.
Yeah. Well, all my friends tell me they can't, it's hard for them to read my stories because they keep imagining me. And I'm like, it's not me. There's nothing of me. I never even put myself in any of those scenes because to me, it's like I'm a director, right? No. So I never, I'm like, I can't believe you believe that. So anyway.
People say that to you too, Kim?
Yeah, a lot of people, friends of mine as well, they look at my husband and go, hey. And I'm like, no, stop.
Oh, man. So speaking of just sex scenes and things, Kim, without revealing too much, what's your favorite scene in your story? One of your favorite.
Actually, I love the sexy scenes, but I think some of my favorite scenes in almost every book that I write is the banter between the two characters. I really love sharp, kind of borderline sarcastic, again, that's kind of like me, conversations. I think they're fun. I think they're funny. I think they show a level of wit, and I really enjoy that. So anytime they start sparring with each other, anytime there's that little bit of like tension. Edge, but still, that tension, but that's really sexy at the same time. I love that. As a writer, I love writing those scenes, and as a reader, I love reading those scenes. So like it's all good for me. And as far as like the love scenes, or if it's tender or quick and dirty or what have you, what I enjoy about those, all of them, is that they convey that character's innate journey, like what they're going through at that moment. And for example, Alexis, she's saying she's sworn off men, but she's really brokenhearted. She feels abused and broken, but she's covering that up with her usual mask and pushing people away. But really deep down inside, she's just really hurting. And I think what's awesome is that Leighton, he sees that, and then it's reflected in the way that they touch each other. And I don't know, I like that stuff.
Yeah, totally. It's the build-up is the best.
Definitely.
How about you, Liz? What's your favorite scene or dialogue?
Well, I love the dialogue. It's really hard to pick one because this story for me just seemed to flow. I mean, it kind of like, I say it came out of my fingertips. I wrote it in 3 weeks. It just was like it was there, it was just really, really easy for me to write because, well, for one thing, my setup was probably a lot easier than Kimberly's. I mean, basically, if you have an empty cabin and a bottle of tequila and one bed and it's cold outside, it's a recipe for some good things to happen. Yeah. But for me, I really like when they're in the cabin and they're kind of super uncomfortable with one another because they keep looking at that bed. And I really enjoyed my poker scene because I think that allowed Emma to reveal part of her personality that Eric had never seen, which allowed him to see her in a new light. So, there's some good banter and there's some, it's kind of ironic because he thinks he's a great card player because he plays at the station all the time, but Emma keeps besting him. And so I liked that scene. So that was probably my favorite.
Awesome. Yep. Love me some tequila in cabins. Cabins in the
That was a fortunate find. Yeah, cabins in the wood and tequila. You can't go wrong.
Now, what do you guys?
Well, no, you really could go wrong. You really could go wrong. But
that's not
in this case, with a sexy firefighter.
I was telling Joanna, I said, that's not fair. Liz gets to go to a cabin, and mine has Gimpy. How are you supposed to have wild sex if she's broken?
Oh.
No. Yeah, but you did a great job with it. And, when she was asking about your favorite scene, I really loved when they went to go hang Christmas lights. It was, and the talk that they had. I mean, I thought, like, she's talked him into going outside and hanging up her Christmas lights. I mean, this is a smart woman, I mean, she's taking advantage of this man to not only, take him to bed and do, some great things there, but he's actually doing work at her house. So, she's a smart cookie.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We actually have a viewer question that just came through from Leo Royston Radio said, "Is the book coming out in the UK?"
Yes.
I believe so.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I thought that it was coming out in the same date, but I could be wrong on that. But I do know that we have one that'll come out in the UK and Australia. I think I already saw the cover for it. It's a different cover, so I know it is. And then I think another collection. Is that right, Kimberly? I think with 2 other authors, they put together a different collection with a different cover. So that it's definitely coming out in the UK.
Excellent. There's your answer. Thank you for the question.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think is the sexiest thing about a firefighter? Like, there's so many. Not one.
Liz, would you like to take that first?
Well, sure. Well, I think with a firefighter, there's that ultimate fantasy for a lot of women because, first of all, I don't know the gear. There's something kind of sexy. Well, I don't know. The way they do it on the covers is definitely sexy, but I don't know. The suspenders and the suits and the big jacket. I don't know. There's just something that's very, like, absolutely manly and masculine about the uniform. My apologies to the female firefighters. But I also think that this sense that they risk so much to do their job. I mean, it's a dangerous job. It's a job that requires a lot of training and a lot of, courage. And that's like an ultimate. I mean, when you think of like hot professions, I mean, no pun intended, but firefighters, one of them. I mean, Navy SEALs. I mean, there's, cowboys, these guys that actually do these very physical things. I mean, that's attractive to a woman. So, I get it. I get why firefighters are sexy.
Totally.
In my other life, I was a journalist for 15 years, and I was the cop and fire reporter. So I actually worked with several hot firefighters, every day, and awesome police officers. And what I think I would laugh because I would see all these ladies just kind of, like, oh, and I'd laugh because I knew them, but I got it because they're heroes. They go out, they put their lives on the line for total strangers without hesitation. And there's something very manly and very sexy about that. And I think in this day and age where, chivalry is few and far between, I think firemen and police officers in the military, they espouse those old time values and, character traits that we just don't see as much anymore.
Yeah, awesome answers. I wholeheartedly agree. So they're snowed in this story. It's cold outside. What are some of your favorite snowed in essentials? I don't know if you're in snowy areas right now where you're living, but if you've ever been snowed in, what do you need when you're snowed in? Do you have any essentials to survive?
Well,
I live in Louisiana. We don't get a lot of snow, so I'll let Kimberly take this one.
In the mountains. I don't live in the mountains any longer, but I grew up in the mountains, and we have actually been snowed in. It's not as romantic as you would hope. It's cold. You have to have wood, and you have to be able to have enough snow to melt to make water so you can flush your toilet. Otherwise, you have no toilet. So I've been snowed in for 7 days, and we had to bury all of our food on the porch. And we had to put little sticks everywhere where the food was because otherwise we couldn't find it again. So, the reality of being snowed So the reality of being snowed in is not so great, but the fantasy of being snowed in with a hot guy and a nice warm crackly fire is amazing.
Yeah. The reality is
it's all about the fantasy.
Cabin fever, yeah. I love
Definitely.
It. Although I have to say, I tried really hard to, bring the reality because I kept thinking about, okay, getting sexy and you're freezing. My whole thing was she kept her socks on, the whole time because it was cold. So he got to thinking that the fuzzy socks were sexy, because, it was easier to think that, right? But I tried really hard to make it a little realistic because I didn't want it to be total, bearskin rug, crackly, everything's perfect, because it wasn't. So I wanted a few challenges for them. So I tried really hard, but they did find tequila, so that helped warm them up. So
exactly. Absolutely. Now, Kim, do you have any favorite Christmas romances, either book or film? Are there any favorites that you always go back to every year?
Well, I don't read a lot of. This was actually my very first in 40 some odd books. This is the first book that I had written with a Christmas kind of a theme centered around Christmas. I've never done that. In fact, my editor was like, you never put anything in your AFS about the season, like the holidays. And I'm like, oh, they don't have any holidays. There's no holidays in my books. So, I was, it was really fun to do that. But I do have a movie. It's a corny movie, and I love it for some reason, and I don't know why. Yes. But it is like one of those movies that I watch whenever it's on, and it's dumb and funny at the same time. And it's Chevy Chase, and I think it was, oh gosh, maybe Funny Farm? But maybe that's not. He's a writer. I can't even remember the name of it right now. He was a writer.
Funny Farm.
Isn't that Funny Farm?
Yeah, Funny Farm.
And they have this Christmas scene where they're trying to sell the house, and they're caroling, and they're making it all up, because they really want to sell the house. And I just love it. I don't know why. It just really appeals to me on some kind of weird level. So that's one of those movies.
Yep. Chevy Chase is amazing.
Oh yeah, Chevy Chase. You can't go wrong, right?
Nope. He's fantastic. What about you, Liz? Any favorites?
Sure. I don't do a lot of. I haven't in the past read a lot of Christmas books. I know they're enormously popular with readers, and this is actually, I think, my third or fourth that I've done with a Christmas theme. And it's actually my second connected Christmas story. So I've kind of been there and done that, but I don't usually tend to focus a lot on the holiday. I kind of use it as background. Right. Because I really want my story to transfer, to be read, any time of the year. But as far as movies, I really love A Christmas Carol. I'm a huge historical. I started writing in historical romance, so I'm a sucker for any kind of period drama or that sort of thing. So I love A Christmas Carol. I like the Patrick Stewart version. That's my favorite. I also, speaking of Chevy Chase, I always watch A Christmas Vacation. It's so silly. But I have two boys. Kim also has boys too, so she probably has seen it several times, but my boys love it. So that's always, we have Cousin Eddie jokes. And so, yeah, that's kind of that's definitely two I probably watch every single year. So
classics. Now, you guys were kind of talking, I know Kim was saying I think you said you're a chaotic writer. So are you plotters? So you're pants writers? Are you both totally opposite?
When I first started out, I was definitely a diehard pantser. I just really, really didn't know where it was going, and I love to be surprised by the process. As I would still consider myself a pantser, but what I found is that it is helpful to have a very, very brief outline. And so what I do is I do a chapter, and I put one sentence of what needs to happen in that chapter. And then I can also look at it and see I need, my subplot is thin here. I need to move, because I can have a visual of it. And I don't stick to it always. It just gives me some kind of loose structure so that my muse doesn't freak out, but it gives me something, to go by. Because, I do, like Liz, I do many different projects, and sometimes they're all colliding into each other. And so I have to have some kind of efficiency with my writing, and you can't be a complete pantser and do that anymore. It's just not feasible. Because I don't have the time to stare off into space for a good hour or 2 hours, and leave you with drinks my tea. I have to actually make it work. And so I find that making that small, just that really quick outline is very helpful. So I don't know if that's a true pantser anymore, but I still identify as a pantser.
Awesome. Die hard pantser. How about you, Liz?
Well, I think when I first started writing, I definitely would call myself a pantser. I really liked that creative process of chasing those rabbits a little bit, seeing where things would take me. As I got, under contract, as Kim knows, when you're working under contract and you have, deadlines, you just don't have a lot of luxury to chase, those plot bunnies and see where it takes you, and hack out huge pieces because you went in the wrong direction. You really don't have time to do it. So I kind of do the same thing. I write out a pretty detailed synopsis. It's usually around 9 pages. Mm-hmm. But I give myself permission to change things. A lot of times when I'm writing, I realize what I thought was going to happen can't happen, or there might be an emotional angle that's just not there, so I have to change it. I may have to add a character, a secondary character that does something. I mean, I'm flexible with myself because that allows me to keep exploring my creativity. But I really do try to have a good idea of where I'm going. So that synopsis keeps me in line. So yeah, I would like to say I'm more organic in a sense that I do allow my story to take me places that I didn't know that I was going to go in that direction. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think you kind of have to when you're under different contracts, and that's you're a true working writer. So
yeah, exactly. Like some people are like, I created an inspiration board, and then I'm like, where do you have time to do that?
Yeah, I don't have an inspiration board. I tried to do it on Pinterest, but it would just stay there with nothing on it.
So I find my inspiration in payment. That's how I get it.
Yeah, exactly. It comes in the form of a check.
Exactly. Getting it. Awesome. Kim, what are you working on next? What's coming down the pipeline so everybody knows?
Oh gosh, I'm on a bit of a tight schedule right now. I just finished another Blaze, and it's called The Flyboy's Temptation. It's something I'm super excited about because it was the first time that I got the opportunity to write what I've always wanted to do, and it involves a plane crash. So I was very excited about that, and my editor was like, "Really?" I was like, "Yes, it's gonna be so great. It's gonna be great. Promise." And that was a lot of fun. I just didn't anticipate how much research I would have to do in the Mexican and Amazon jungle because I really don't know anything about those places. Thank God for Google Earth. So I don't know what I would have done without it. And it was amazing. It was a lot of fun. So I just finished that, and I'm just actually today I'm working on revisions for that. And then I have to start writing my newest romantic suspense that is called Deep Cover. And then I have to jump into another Blaze after that, and then I have another romantic suspense after that. And then in between those, I have some indie projects that I'm working on.
Wow, awesome! So you're busy.
Thank you.
Very busy gal.
Well, and I also do cover design for other people, and so I have a number of clients that are waiting for me. And then I also am, for my daughter, I'm the VP of cheer, so because I'm a cheer coach, and so I deal with spirit fingers. So I deal with cheerleader stuff, and so it's a lot.
Wow. That was a very eclectic mix coming down. We're excited. What's next for you, Liz?
Well, ironically, I find myself, I talked to my agent yesterday. I'm at a little bit of a crossroads because I'm really kind of deciding at this moment what I really want to do with my career. I have written a lot this year. I've written 3 books and a novella since January, so I've been writing pretty hard. And so I just finished a 2-book proposal that my agent is going to take to another publisher that I write for. So that, proposals take me a long time. They take a lot of thought and trying to get it right. So, but what I do have coming up, I have a new book, a new Blaze that's coming in February. It's called Cowboy Crush. It's a really cute story about a ranch that this New Jersey girl inherits, and she kind of has this idea that she could possibly fit there, and she kind of bumbles into town, and the ranch is just it's in horrible shape, horrible condition. And so she ends up talking this bull rider who's recovering from a shoulder injury into helping her fix it up. And of course, there's lots of good, shenanigans. My editor was a little appalled that I had a scene in Home Depot. I told her, I said, I think Home Depot can be sexy. But, it's just kind of a cool story. And I had to get them off the ranch. I mean, there's only so many places you can have sex in. And so they had to go to Home Depot for a little bit of a reprieve. But anyway, I really like this story. It's a fun story. And it's got, it's got a good deal of romance and some sweetness to it. There's a lot of heat and there's a lot of sweetness. So that's coming up in February, and then I have a new book coming out with another publisher in May, and it's a new series that's very similar to my Superromance. It's kind of small town, and I don't know, just it's a really cool story. So I've got things in the works. I've got lots of things. I'm just really kind of deciding where I want to focus at this point, and that's always hard. The business is so volatile, and you don't know really kind of where to plug in sometimes. So I'm kind of at a crossroads, which is unusual because usually I've got contract, and I'm doing kind of like what Kimberly's doing. So I kind of find myself the opposite of her at this moment. So
it's interesting to hear, though. There's all different stages to the process. You're always good to be fluid and moving. So
yeah, that's right.
So we're almost out of time, but I wanted to do the rapid fire. So we'll see which things you guys both like. Champagne or wine?
Champagne.
Wine. I like them both, but I was going to say both, but
Dark chocolate or milk chocolate?
Dark.
Probably milk.
Lipstick or mascara? What do you need more than the other?
Probably lipstick because mascara. I'm allergic to almost all mascaras. So.
Oh, that's No, lipstick's just right on there, and you're looking fine. Silver or gold?
Gold.
White gold. Nice.
Santa or Rudolph? Take that as you will. Role play? I don't know.
If it's role play, I'm gonna go Rudolph. I don't know why. He seems sexier than Santa.
That would crush all people's dreams.
No, I want to know what Santa does with the naughty girls, because that's probably where I'd end up.
That's perfect. I didn't even think of that. Amazing. Christmas trees or palm trees?
Ugh, Christmas trees. I hate palm trees.
I know.
Yeah, I'm going to go Christmas trees with that too. I mean, I like the beach, but yeah, Christmas tree.
They're pretty ugly. Eggnog or a hot toddy? I forget.
I love eggnog, so I'd probably have to go with eggnog.
Yeah, I'm going to go with, can I go with wine? I think I'll just take the wine.
Some hot, mulled, spicy wine for winter, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Mulled wine, that'll work.
So when you're stuck, snowed in with someone that you love, jacuzzi or fireplace? Where do you like to set up?
Fireplace.
Yeah, fireplace.
It's hard to have sex in a jacuzzi. I'm just saying. Okay.
That would be a hilarious scene.
The jacuzzi is for foreplay. That's jacuzzi.
I love this right now. I'm so happy.
You can have both jacuzzi and fireplace. That works.
Yep.
Yeah, but then you're wet and you're dripping all over the place. I'm like, ugh.
That's how you dry. Come on, Kim. That's how you dry off the fire and the body heat.
No. You get heated up at the fireplace, and then you go to the jacuzzi to clean off and everything, and that's okay, but not jacuzzi first. That's just a mess.
I think I'd be a sweaty mess either way, so I think I would need to take a walk in the snow and then come back. I don't know. Last one, Okay, the 2 Christmas movies. Do you like It's a Wonderful Life better, or Miracle on 34th Street? 2 classics.
Miracle on 34th Street.
Yeah, I'm going to go with that one too.
Okay.
I like Miracle on 34th Street.
Awesome. Well, we've come to the end of our questions, unfortunately, but it's been a great time with you guys. That's why I like to do rapid fire, so we have some crazy responses. I love it. And it's been great chatting with you, and thank you to our viewers, and please stop by.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Take care.
Yeah,
everybody.
it was really fun. Thank you so much, and thanks for those who popped by and watched.
Yeah. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Hi. Bye. Thank you.
Yeah.